Hello, thanks for joining us for this AFN Okinawa special report. Today we're joined by the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the First Lady of the Marine Corps, and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Gentlemen, ma'am, thanks so much for joining us in beautiful Okinawa, Japan. We appreciate the time that you took to come to us today.
Great to see you, Gunny.
Sir, we're going to go ahead and kick things off with about a year ago, you and I and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps sat down and we talked about the focus on the Pacific and why the United States was focusing its foreign policy here and strengthening the Marine Corps' ties within the Pacific. How's the process going in the last year?
I'll tell you, we have committed in the Marine Corps to do just exactly what the President asked us to do. We have, I'll give you an example. We went from 1 infantry battalion on the island of Okinawa to 3, and we're about to go to 4. So by October this year, we'll have the 4th Marine Regiment completely stood up for the first time in probably 7 or 8 years. So not only that, it's aviation, it's all the other aspects, the logistics. We're very committed, and we put a lot of money and effort into this effort.
Strategically, why does it make sense to have such a large portion of the Marine Corps in the Pacific?
Well, the Pacific, first of all, is 100,000 square miles of surface. It's 33 times bigger than the contiguous part of the United States. So it's a huge area. 61% of the world's population lives here. We've got 5 of our 7 United States major treaties that we've signed with other nations in the Asia-Pacific area. It's probably our greatest trading partners are in the Asia-Pacific area. 15 of the world's 28 megacities are within 100 kilometers of the coast. So this is an important area for us strategically as the United States of America.
What capabilities do we bring to the Pacific region when you look back on things like Operation Tomodachi and other natural disasters here in the Pacific?
We bring a mindset that we're ready to go. I mean, overnight. It's not a matter of just give us a week and we'll get ready. We're going to go today. Exactly what happened with the 3 MEF forces in Tomodachi. General Gluck wisely took all the forces, put them on alert that afternoon, and they flew out the next morning. So we come with a mindset of we're ready to go. We come with an ethos of we don't need a lot to support us. We'll bring our own stuff. We'll live hard, and we don't mind doing the dirty work. So, and in this part of the world, that's a real plus.
Sergeant Major, you travel, a good portion of your time is spent traveling and visiting with Marines throughout the world. What have you seen within the Pacific and the mindset of Marines here?
Not just in the Pacific, but everywhere that I travel. One of the things that really jumps out at both the Commandant and myself and the First Lady of the Marine Corps when we travel is, let's go back to September 11th, and then our nation was attacked, and then our nation called for an elite class of Americans. And there has been no shortage of them. So as we travel around, I get to see the proficiency, the discipline, the esprit de corps, the morale and the motivation. And coming to the Pacific, back to the Pacific on this trip, we're seeing exactly all that again. And I constantly, in the message that the Commandant and I delivered while we were on this trip, is to remind everybody just how humbling and what a privilege it is that we get to serve them. Because the Marines here in the Pacific, they know the mission that they have out in front of them, and they could have done anything they wanted in their life, but they chose to wear the cloth of this nation, and we're just privileged that we get to serve them because we know what they're going to do for us.
Now, when you're talking with the individual Marines, what can you tell them about their impact as the individual on the mission and being an ambassador for the United States?
That all of their actions have strategic implications, and they need to be stand-up men and women. And when it comes time to do something, just immediately take into consideration, hey, is what I'm about to do, is it moral, ethical, professional, safe, and just? And your brain can assimilate that in a nanosecond, and they know that they're going to need to make the right decision because the Japanese and us, we've never had such a great relationship. So you said it, we are wonderful people in uniform. They are the ambassadors for the United States.
You touched on ethical beliefs and things like that. Why is it so important for us to take the stand when it comes to sexual assault prevention response and the training?
I'll tell you, because sexual assault is the most disgusting, demeaning, shameful, criminal act. And to violate another person, I'll tell you what, if you're a predator, And the message has been clearly received and delivered over the last week as the Commandant and I have been traveling here, and then with all of our wonderful leadership around the Marine Corps. The Marines are fed up with it. They're sick and tired of it. You single out, you prey on one of our wonderful people, stand by, because the Marines are raising up and they're going to get you, and they're going to put a boot right in your neck.
You seem pretty passionate about this, and I'm sure, sir, it's been echoed on your side as well. I've seen your guidance before, and we've had stand down after stand down to remind people that they have, a moral obligation to take care of not only our Marines, but our friends and our neighbors.
I'll tell you, we wouldn't allow, here's the bottom line. We're the United States Marine Corps. We are a team, and team members take care of one another. We don't allow bad things to happen to one another. We protect one another. We fight alongside of one another, and we give our lives for one another. So in an organization, institution whose ethos is that, why would we allow a single Marine to prey or to attack another Marine? We wouldn't allow that to happen. Our problem is we just haven't been looking at it that way. We haven't looked at it from the viewpoint of, this is an assault on one of us. And we need to do that. We need to understand that for what it is. And it's exactly what the Sergeant Major said. We're fed up with it. We're done with it. And we need our Marines to step up and step forward and do the right thing.
Well, Bonnie, I know you travel the world with your husband and the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Thank you for joining us here today. You're a busy lady. What is life like for the First Lady of the Marine Corps?
Well, Gunny, you said it exactly right. It is busy. I take this role very seriously and get up every morning and think, what can I do to help our families? Because the strengths that the Sergeant Major and the Commandant have just spoken about, and the requirements that they have just spoken about that are for our Marines, we also have to prepare our families. They need to be equally as strong, equally as prepared, equally as educated, and equally able to stay back as required. If you take the Tomodachi incident, while these Marines were on alert and moving forward into the fray, then families were still left back here to sort of hold it together between the children, between all the responsibilities that happen uniquely here in Okinawa, because they can't just drive 100 miles or 400 miles and be home to family for support. So it's very important that we educate and inform our families of the resources and the opportunities that are out here. I take that very, very seriously. I look back at myself when I was young and didn't know a whole lot. It's nice to know that we have a lot more that we can call on to include each other.
Now, you've been around the Marine Corps for 40 plus years, pretty much since your husband was running around in his flight suit as a lieutenant, correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
What have you seen as far as changes go for the family? What's available out there to them when their loved one's deployed?
It's probably a stretch for me to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. What isn't there out there for the families when our Marines are in training or ready to deploy? Every opportunity is out there. Every help, the links, the family readiness briefs that we do, MCCS services that we have out there, the educational opportunities that are out there, the resources, if somebody is tight on money, is out there. So everything that we could possibly want or need, that individual, that spouse, that family member just needs to reach out and raise a hand if they are in need, or at least look to their left and right and see if there are others that are in need or lonely. We all get lonely, we all get depressed, we all just wonder, is this ever going to end? I call it, we need to move from the backyard or inside the house to front porch living. We need to look out to our left and our right for our family members and our neighbors and take care of one another. Again, unique opportunities and experience here in Okinawa, but we need to look out for those that may have issues and need help.
In your opinion, what role does the military spouse play in the balance of the Marine Corps?
Well, in my opinion, the military spouse is the heart and soul of this success for the Marine Corps. We are, it's trite to say, but we are the ones that are left behind to keep those home lights burning, to keep the candle in the window that says we've got it all together and we can be strong for not only ourselves and our family and our Marines that we love the best, but also for our nation. While we may not wear this cloth or your cloth, we're committed, we serve every single day that our husbands or wives are in the uniform. We are serving right alongside of them equally, as do our children.
Now, sir, we've got tens of thousands of service members and Marines here in the Pacific region. What have you seen as far as our relationship with Japan in the last few years, and where do you see it going in the future?
I'll tell you, Gunny, I've never seen it better. I've been a Marine for 43 years, multiple deployments to the Pacific. I cut my teeth, grew up out here, and I have never seen it as strong as it is right now. I think and I've said this many times back, even at Congress when I've had an opportunity to testify, I think out of that great tragedy and all that, just the horrific nature of Tomodachi and or the earthquake and tsunami and the nuclear disaster, out of that grew a friendship that our nations, ours with the Japanese, we've not seen since I've never seen it. So I think the relationship is there. We're doing things together. We're training together. There's a confidence level at the very senior levels of the government and the military with the United States of America and with the U.S. military. I'd like to just brag for a minute on Lieutenant General Ken Gluck and his Marines at 3MEF. To include the base and station here and the Med Commander and all that, they have taken the matter of friendship and interoperability and with a genuine willingness to cooperate and work together and train together and raise everybody's boats as the tide rises, so to speak. They've taken that to a level that I think all of us were completely unexpected. I mean, it's for us now when we travel, we don't get to Tokyo very often. We were there last August. You talk about warmly received by the very senior leadership of this nation in the military is just unheralded. So I'm very grateful for what General Gluck and his team has done. We're going to miss him, change of command today, as you're aware, and he's going to come back to Washington. He's had all this good life out here. I'm going to put him to hard work in Washington, D.C., but I'm very grateful for that relationship.
So you're hoping to get the battle colors out of his hands today?
Well, General Whistler's hoping to get the battle colors out of his hands today, I promise you that. But truth of the matter is, the relationship is just so strong today. I'm proud of it. It just makes me proud to be, I feel like a father, to just kind of stand off in the distance and watch how this relationship has grown.
You mentioned General Whistler. When we look into the next several years as him being the commanding general, what do you see as far as 3MEF goes, and do you see the importance becoming even more in the future? I
do. I think we're going to build on that relationship. I think the interoperability between our two governments, just to focus on Japan and the United States. I mean, we're trained together now. We just finished a major exercise off the coast of San Diego. Dawn Blitz, the Japanese came over there with their ships. We landed our MB-22 Osprey on their flight decks. We've had their soldiers on our amphibious ships here in the 31st Muse. So that will only continue to grow and will continue to be more interoperable and do things together. So that's in our best interest. But what I'm confident you're going to see in the Pacific is, because of the force structure and because of that we're putting in the Pacific, they're going to see a greater reliance on relationship building between us, the United States, and all our partners that are out here. I mean, Australia, Thailand, obviously Japan, South Korea, Singapore, the Philippines, Australia. We need to build some relationships with some of the other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, perhaps Vietnam. You're going to see an engagement, I think, over the next 2 years under General Whistler's that will just take us to the next level.
Yes, sir. Now, Bonnie, when we look at military families overseas, you've lived overseas quite a few years in your time. What resources are now available out there to families, and what can they do to get involved in the community overseas?
Well, I think they just need to go knock on the door of Marine and Family Services and look at all of the opportunities that are there. Again, one of the unique opportunities that's here, because we have many spouses that are that English is not their first language, then the opportunity to take links to learn about the Marine Corps, to learn about the pay structure, to learn about the deployment structure, and to learn about all the opportunities that are there is a wonderful place for any young spouse to start. The volunteer opportunities are all over this island. There's no shortage of that. So just knock on the door and say, here am I, what can I do? And I would encourage, I think anybody that comes over to a wonderful place like Okinawa or Iwakuni, where we have a preponderance of Marines, and sits behind their door and says, I don't know what to do, is missing out on a great adventure. This is a wonderful opportunity to live in a different culture and experience all the goodness that is possibly there.
And there's a lot of opportunities to give back to the local community as well. I know you're a big proponent of the Marine Gift Shop and a few other of the spouses clubs
I
here.
think my husband would say it's probably more than a proponent. It may be a checkbook issue, but that's probably another
broke.
discussion for another time.
I'm going
Don't
broke.
tell him all of that. Someone else bought all those packages yesterday.
About a year ago, you released a reading list. Tell us the thoughts behind that.
Connie, thank you for asking about that reading list. It was one of those aha moments that occurred, and I won't go into all of the background on all of that, but suffice it to say that we put a committee together, and they came up with an incredible list of references, resources, and personal stories from many of the books are written by military spouses for military spouses and their families, and we pulled in on that. It was an opportunity that was really not quite where we started out, but as the committee began to research and we realized how many great books there are about our lifestyle and how we live it and why it's so important to be strong as we go through it, we pulled in those, as many of those as we possibly could. We have some other reference books, we have some health books, we have some spiritual books, we have some known books, etiquette books, but most of them are stories, books written by military spouses for military families. Those spouses have a story to tell and to share. The interesting thing, as we've developed this reading list and then gone out and done book signings and met with people, the spouses that come and the Marines that come and the children that come to these book signings to meet the authors and to meet me, they have a story to tell and they want to share with us. So it has been a great source of community building and getting people to share their stories. We are a civilization that likes to tell stories. Spend 24 hours on a plane with the Sergeant Major, I get lots of great stories most of the time. And we love to share, and there's healing in that. We're coming out of 12 years of war. We need that healing. We need that open community. We need to be able to share without fear. We need to be able to hear somebody say, I've been through this, read it and say, that's exactly what I went through, and I'm not alone in this. It's been a wonderful venue.
Well, we're going to be sharing that list for everyone on our social media sites later today to make sure they get that out there.
Thank you. We have a new and improved list that's going to hit about 1 September, and we'll send it out to you as well.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Now, you've also kind of blazed the ground as far as the First Lady of the Marine Corps and social media goes. People can follow you on Facebook. You've got a few other sites. We'll make sure and list those as well.
Thank you.
The last photo I saw on your site was a photo of the new pup there at 8th and I. So
we love our new puppy, Connie, I'm telling you, but as the Sergeant Major was saying earlier, he's no 8-pound little guy anymore. He's 42 pounds of mostly goodness. So we've had a good time with him. He keeps outgrowing his uniforms, though. You know, at the barracks, we live a pretty perfect life, and we expect our PFC, Chesty the 14th, to be in correct uniform at all times. He keeps busting out of him. We think we're going to have to put him on weight control.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but he'll take over the helm as the official mascot of the Marine Corps, the very last parade in August at Marine Barracks 8th and I. We'll retire the 13th. He's been a good dog, but it's time for him to be able to retire and enjoy some of the fruits of his labor.
Now, sir, let's talk just a minute about the Navy Marine Corps team and why this 200-plus year history and relationship is so important.
You know, I think it's never been better than it is right now, and I'd like to brag about my teammate, Admiral John Green, at the Chief of Naval Operations. He and I see eye to eye together. We were at a think tank speaking in Washington a week ago, and I spoke first, and I hardly mentioned the Marine Corps because I looked at his speaking notes, and all he talked about for about 10 minutes was the United States Marine Corps and how important the expeditionary operations are, how important the ability for the amphibious forces to come together and do those things that our nation needs it to do. So it's never been better, first of all. And when you think about the world that we're in today, all around, not just the Pacific with its just massive amounts of ocean, but quite honestly, nations around the world want to engage with us. They understand the United States as a good partner and a safe partner, but they don't want a large footprint of U.S. forces on their soil. And it's just the nature of the way the world is today. Naval forces don't bring that footprint. We just park offshore in international waters. That's where the chow halls are. That's where the resupply effort is. And we put just what's needed ashore. We do that in a very expeditionary way. We can come across the surface. We can fly in with our stuff. We can operate, train, in some cases help out in disasters. As you know, in the Pacific, I mean, they lose 70,000 people a year in the Pacific due to natural disasters. So we can do all that as a Navy Marine Corps team, and we do that from the sea, and nobody else can do that. So if we didn't have a Navy Marine Corps team, we would invent one because the need is there.
Excellent. Now, Sir Major, before we close today, was wanting to talk about a little bit about the drawdown and as far as accessions, retention, and recruiting goes. Could you just touch base on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as we draw down from 202,000 down to 182,100, and you know, I always, you know, the Commandant and I are always talking. He's always got 100 balls in the air. He's juggling 100 things simultaneously, and one of the areas in the pillars of institutional readiness, his very number one pillar of institutional readiness is high quality people. And underneath high quality people, we're dealing with the recruiting, the mentoring, the retaining, and the promotion of high quality people. And today, accessions has never been better. 99.7% of all inductees into the United States Marine Corps that become poolees are high school graduates. We've never had that before, that type of quality coming into our institution. And when you look at the mental aptitude testing, it's off the charts. So we're bringing in nothing but high quality. When you look at our retention rates right now, retention in the Marine Corps has already been really made for 2013. And when you look at the tier level, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 of what's being retained in the Marine Corps, we're keeping the very best. So accessions is great. Retention is absolutely wonderful, and next year for FY14's retention mission, we actually have a mission of 14,000 this year for next year, which is 500 more than this year. So it's very bright. The future is very bright. We're going to continue to retain the high quality people and promotions. Last year was the most abysmal year when it came to promotions. It's because we had enormous populations and small allocations because we've been living in a time of prosperity where we were growing the force and we were retaining, we had the money and we could keep what we wanted to keep. But as we start to draw down, we fell into this era where we had too many and the allocation was small. Well, I'm glad and I'm proud to report that the boards this year, we've right-sized ourselves, so we have the right-sized populations and the allocations have improved. And just so all the sergeants going to Staff Sergeant know, the board just went into session, and there is 2,955 allocations this year. That's 1,385 more than last year, so that is goodness. So we're looking good in the sessions, retention, and promotion.
Excellent, Sir Major. Now, Bonnie, you did a feat last year. You were able to spend Christmas in Afghanistan. What was that experience like as a spouse to see what your uniformed members go through every day?
Personally, Gunny, it was the most amazing experience I think I have ever had, apart from marrying my husband, of course, and spending 24 hours on the plane with the Sergeant Major. going to Afghanistan allowed me the opportunity to see the country that we have been in for so long, where we've shed blood, where we've left lives, where we've left limbs, and where we have had great successes, and see it through the eyes of a family member. I see things differently than my husband does and the Sergeant Major does, and all of you who wear the cloth. The stories that I was able to come back and share with many spouses was in some ways a healing for many of them that were able to hear me speak, not because of me speaking, but because of what I showed them that I saw and experienced while I was over there. To be able to put on a flak jacket and a helmet and then be in the presence of these Marines that are so highly trained, so highly qualified, and so much on their A game, it was just humbling and awing. Small story, if we have time, was that when my husband speaks in front of Marines, they all watch him, they're intent, their eyes are intent, their bodies are straight, and they're serious. And then the Sergeant Major would speak to them, and they're still the same way, but he gets them all jacked up, and they're saying, "Yes, Sergeant Major," and "No, Sergeant Major," and they're really paying attention to him. And then the Sergeant Major would graciously introduce me, and I would say, I wasn't quite sure the first time what to say, and so I looked at the Marines, and remember, they're on their A game. They've got guns and pistols and all this kind of stuff falling off them. They're ready to shoot the next fly that goes by. And I said, "Merry Christmas, Marines." And their shoulders dropped and their A game kind of fell apart. And the Sergeant Major behind me grabs me by the arm and said, "What are you doing to my Marines?" And I brought just a sense of home for those few minutes on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning when we were fob jumping all over the place. What an opportunity. And then to fly in our amazing aircraft, it was just, don't get me started, Gunny. I don't shut up very easily.
Once in a lifetime opportunity, right?
Well,
We'll talk about that one later, right, ma'am?
Still another Christmas coming up.
Now, sir, let's close out with your thoughts on Afghanistan and how the Marine Corps performed and what you see coming up.
Sergeant Major and I just got back the end of last month. We've been, I think, 3 times now since Christmas, or to include Christmas. But it's better than we even thought it was going to be. We're optimistic. We've been bullish on it. We understand what's going on and the progression of the Afghan National Security Forces and taking the lead. We've watched that now. But when we came back the end of last month, we were even more pleasantly surprised. What's happened now is we've transitioned from offensive combat operations to honestly what we call an advise and assist teams. And we built these teams of Marines, trained them, deployed them last year. They're there now. And their job is to train and advise and assist the Afghan National battalions and the brigades and corps. And they've done that. We put a general in charge of just doing nothing but being responsible for the training. We're bringing them back early next month. We're bringing probably half the training teams back early next month because the forces that they've trained are ready. We haven't done an offensive combat operation in 6 months. We're there. We're one terrain feature over as a backup force for the Afghan National Army. But at this point, from what we saw with almost limited experiences, they don't really need us much. They've done it, and it's what we hoped would happen. So I tell everybody, I don't know how this is going to turn out in the end as a nation, but when we complete the mission in December of 2014, we will have set the conditions for the greatest opportunity for success in the Helmand Province. And I told all the PFCs and Lance Corporals yesterday that had not been. I said, just buckle your seatbelts. There's plenty of work to be done for our nation over the next 2 decades. Stay with the Corps. You'll have an opportunity to go to combat. But the mission in Afghanistan, they should share in the satisfaction that the mission there has gone very, very well. And I'm very proud of them. So I'm very bullish on it. It'll be time for us to leave in December of next year. Not cut and run, but to leave with a sense of satisfaction like we did the Anbar province in Iraq. Our mission there was done.
Well, sir, thank you so much for joining us today. Ma'am, it was wonderful having you with us. And Sergeant Major, it's always a pleasure. We appreciate your time, and we're going to cut back over to the studio, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank
All right, Gunny, thank you very much.